Hello viewers, welcome back to yet another segment of my programs. My name is Barbara, and today I'm going to be talking to a special couple who have weathered it all to their marriage, and you won't believe this. Next week on the 8th of December they will be celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. Wow, it's so amazing, so amazing. I'm excited and astounded given the rate of which marriages are breaking. But today we've got a special couple who are going to tell us how they have managed to be together for 50 years in marriage. Not 50 years of birthday, no, not 50 years of working experience, no, but today I'm very excited to be talking about a jubilee in marriage. So with me today I've got Sue and Ronnie, my program.
Thank you.
Hello. And to start with, I think we need, please tell the viewers how and where you met.
Sure. Well, we met on a blind date. I had a friend who gave me a phone number of Susan. I didn't know anything about her. And I had it in my wallet for 6 months. And one week I was really desperate for a date. And all my resources had failed. And I remembered I had this piece of paper in my wallet. So I phoned up this lady and asked her out, and it was a Wednesday night, and it was very unusual for a Johannesburg girl to accept a date so close to a Saturday night, because it was considered not the thing to do. But Susan was, as I would have discovered, totally different from the norm, and said fine. And I think I had the common sense to ask her out after that date for a second date, and from the second date I knew this is the girl I wanted to marry.
Wow.
So it was, I'll tell you the year, it was 1967, June
Correct.
1967. I was 17 and Ronnie was 20 years old. And yeah, when he took me out on this date, I thought, quite nice. But then he said something like, he did say, my friend said that
the people I put together
yes,
normally get married.
Yes, they said that. And I thought, oh, what a jerk. You know, I'm not going to get married. I've only just met him. Anyway, from that date onwards, I really liked him. He was polite and he was lovely. And I was right. We've been married for 50 years. Now we went out for 4 years as boyfriend and girlfriend. I was still at art school, finishing my last year. I did fine art teaching, and Ronnie was becoming a chartered accountant. He did BCom CA and he was at university. So we were both young, and we got married, both of us, in our last year of education, university. And we moved to a rent-controlled flat in Yeovil. That was our first home. We both were not earning very much money. I was earning nothing. In fact, he paid for my art school. And
that was 25 Rand a year. How's that?
And we were struggling, let me tell you, because we didn't, you know, we were studying and not working. But we were happy.
We were studying all the time, we never went out. And I know that our parents used to come with vegetables or little handouts to help us on our way. And it was wonderful, because when we got married, I brought my bed from home, Susan brought her bed from home. The difference was 6 inches in length, so it looked very funny but we had the eider down to cover, to make it look presentable. And that's how we started out.
We didn't care because
And we
we
didn't
were
care.
like hippies, you know. It was cool to just have boxes for bookcases and things like that. We were happy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
in those days the government
Yes.
used to subsidize these institutions.
Oh, I see.
You know, there were various institutions for nurses. There was a nurses training college. There were apprentice colleges,
Home economics.
something which unfortunately from 1994 they did away with. And I think it was a major, major mistake in the education department. And it gave people an opportunity to learn a trade and get a job. So, yeah, it's what?
No, I agree.
Yeah. So that's why it was, I think it was, look, to us it's a lot of money, but it was cheap. If you look at it in hindsight, it was affordable.
And we had one car. We had
Yeah.
one car, and
Yeah, I
most
used to
of the
use the
time.
bus. I used to use the bus all the time. And then when I was on audit, the auditing firm would lend me a car if the audit was out of town. So I know I had a major number of big audits, one in Germiston for a very big company, and I had a car lent to me for that specific purpose. But you know what? If we've never been materialistic, ever. So having the trappings of life it was unimportant. And you make a decision. If you get married early in life, you've got less to start with. If you get married later in life, then you're more financially secure, and you can afford the appliances, the kitchen appliances. You can afford the lounge suites and the dining room suites and the bedroom suites and all that. We took years to get that together. So the flat that we were in was rent controlled and also had all the appliances. So we didn't have to worry about the kitchen part of it. It was a small kitchen, but at least it had what we needed.
No,
So,
it
yeah.
didn't have even a washing machine
No, it
actually. He
didn't.
says it had all the appliances, but I know because I washed 180 nappies a week when I had the first, well, 2 children was 180 nappies a week. So we had 2 kids in that flat. The one kid had her own room, and the other child, when she came along, we put her in the passage. You know, we never thought anything of it. That's what we had. Nobody had any more or less. And
that was her bedroom, right near the front door in the passage. And guess what? Everyone grew up sane and normal.
And
There was no such thing as disposable nappies in those days. It was just Stork. And Stork gave you a big bin, and all your cloth nappies you threw into this bin, and they collected it once a week.
that was really horrific.
Thank goodness, because of the smell. By the end of the week it was. But you know what? You look back on these challenges, and although it may seem horrific now, people might say, I couldn't do that, I couldn't live like that. To us it was, this is what we've got, this is what we can afford, we're happy, let's just move on and worry about things that are important.
But we were only in that flat for a few years, 4 or 5 years, some more.
6, 7.
All right, and then when we were having the second child, I think.
Third, Sean.
No, Shawnee.
No, Sean.
It was
No, you could be
Alicia.
right.
Yeah, when we
Sorry,
were having
could be sorry.
the second child, Ronnie found a piece of land that was in Santon that was affordable. I think the land was 10,000 or something like that. And because his company,
I was at a bank at that stage,
yeah,
and one of the perks of the job was that they could give you a housing loan. and the housing loan was at 2.5% interest. And the bank wanted you to take as big a bond as possible because that's how they would retain your services, certainly if they wanted you, and made it very they would encourage you to take as big a loan as possible to make it more difficult for you to leave the bank. So we set ourselves a limit and built a house which we've enlarged 3 separate occasions, 2 main ones and 1 small one. And we lived in the house for 44 years.
So we still have the house, but we had a serious home invasion. So we left the house. But we've been there 44 years and we've been very, very happy there. We loved it. We loved every minute of it, and it's been it was a wrench to leave the house, but we also realized that we're at a stage in our lives where we need to live in a smaller place and get our lives in order. So we just take another step in a more interesting, a new phase of our lives, which is quite exciting actually.
Wow, what an amazing story. I love this. And something that I've picked from what you were saying, you said you started, when I look at you, and you said you started to live together for when you were not 17.
No, no, I came from a very strict home, and Ronnie lived far away. He lived in Murraysburg, which is a very small little place, and we were boyfriend and girlfriend. Ronnie was my first boyfriend, but we stayed at home. You know, there was no such thing as living together. And we went out together for 4 years before we got married, and I was 20 when I got married. 21, just 21, sorry, 3 weeks after my 21st birthday.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's beautiful. And you, from what I can see now, what I've gathered from what you said, I think we can say you didn't love him for material things.
No, absolutely. I think that Ronnie and I got something very important, a real value system that we both on par with. We're in sync with all of that. You know, we believe in the same things, we have the same moral compass, and we have completely different interests, by the way. You know, Ronnie's a chartered accountant, I'm an artist. We like at the opposite end of the spectrum, and we don't always agree on things, but what we do agree on is allowing each other to have our own opinion about things, and we believe in kindness, in speaking to each other nicely. I don't think Ronnie's ever said anything, any word to me that has undermined me or made me feel bad, not in all the years that we've been married. And he's always supported everything, every project that I wanted to do. And I can tell you I've done some absolutely weird and wild and projects that have taken me into dangerous places and that have taken my time. I've been overseas to take South African art to Atlanta for the Olympics, where I was away from him for 3 weeks. He always said, stay as long as you need to, I'll look after the kids. You know, we had a third child, Sean, while we were in the house. And so we had the 3 kids. We couldn't afford to send them to private schools, so they were all at government schools. And Ronnie continued to work very hard when he had to go into this out of town to work. He did that, and he left me alone with the kids. And basically I brought up my kids without a maid without a domestic worker for the first 5 or 6 years, and Ronnie always helped. We always worked together as a team. I never felt that Ronnie wasn't there for me at any stage. He did
Accepting,
accepting.
when I was sleeping, and it happened 2 or 3 times that affected me directly. Susan woke me up and she said, I've just had a wonderful idea. And those were the 2 major alterations to the house. I just looked at, I've been blessed.
If you got any more new ideas, please do not wake me up in the middle of the night and tell me, because I know it's going to cost me money.
It's been a privilege to be with someone who thinks so differently, so out of the box. Like Susan did her doctorate in taxi hand signs. Now taxi hand signs have been with us for a long, long time. But Susan was the first one to notice that it was a separate language. It was a language used by millions of people. And the way the communication that took place was something that people just subconsciously noticed, but no one actually said, wait a second, what's going on here? And that's what Susan did. She stopped, first of all, she asked the lady that worked for us, Sophia, what all this meant, and Sophia explained to her, but then gave her the first wrong taxi hand sign, where she showed Susan the middle finger and said that that was a taxi hand sign. And Susan did a couple of wooden sculptures and metal sculptures with the middle finger, and then everyone was saying to her, oh no, this isn't a taxi sign at all. So already Susan was on that journey and went into taxi ranks, went into various townships to meet with all the taxi organizations like Faraday and all the others, that's Taku and top six. And here was this white woman coming into the townships, and Susan came back and I was saying, didn't you take anyone with you? And Susan said, I've never felt so safe in my life. She was meeting with 10, 12 committee members of these taxi organizations, and always found 1 or 2 that would go the extra length to give her the inside information of how it started, who was involved in the beginning. And Susan did all these wonderful interviews, and this is the kind of thing that Susan does. She is innovative. She looks at different social problems, like the housing crisis, the hostel crisis, all these kinds of things. And of course, it all started either by her being personally involved, like the housing crisis, when Sophia couldn't get a house and there was too much red tape, and Susan got involved and we organized a house. We organized a RDP house and then built an extra room or 2 onto that, and got her title deeds and got her own piece of land.
That was an art project. That became an art project. Yeah. So all the time you can understand that I'm getting support from Ronnie. He is standing by me in whatever I do and encouraging me, even though some of the projects that I was doing were quite unusual.
The one project which is there in the APSA building, in the atrium, in the APSA Bank in town, is a 50-foot high, a 5-story high sculpture which goes up and down and sideways, talking about the new and old Johannesburg. And there was a competition amongst the artists to win a space, and Susan produced this idea of this massive sculpture, which ended up costing well over R1 million by the time it was put together, and actually won the space, the competition. for
Well,
that.
I
for
won
that
the
one
space for
space.
the atrium together with 2 other architects.
So, and then Susan,
And those 2 architects and I designed that together.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
yeah. So the projects were very varied, and it was like a journey. It was an absolute journey, and just when one finished, you thought, oh, okay, now we can go back to normal living. I would hear, I have an idea for a new project, and I thought, oh, here we go again.
So
And that's been the story of my life. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing roller coaster. The mind doesn't stop. And sometimes I'll just say to her, can't you give it a break? Just for a day. No, always on the go. Always
so
on the go.
you even stood by me, and a lot of people ask me, how could you go and do a doctorate? I was already 59. Yeah, when I went to varsity to do my doctorate to Wits. And
And my answer was very simple. I say, if you, as a man, you want to stay young, you're only as young as the woman you feel. So I sent her back to university.
no, because Ronnie's always joking. It's amazing. I still laugh at his jokes. But you know what? There's a lot of kindness and love between us, and we love being together. We really enjoy being together. And for me, it's a privilege to be together with Ronnie, because everything that I have in my life, everything has been because of our relationship together. Our beautiful 3 children, our grandchildren, our 6 gorgeous grandchildren. Of course, they have to be gorgeous. That's how all grandchildren are gorgeous, and they're the apples of our eye, of course. But I think those values, the values of support and love and kindness, is very, very important in a marriage. That is, in any relationship, there has to be giving and taking. We don't always agree, but we allow each other to have a difference of opinion. If he doesn't agree with me, and it's something very important to me, and I really want him to change his mind, then I wait for him to get over his stubborn patch, because he can dig in, you know. And then I talk to him nicely and I ask him, and if he really doesn't want to do something, he has to decide what that is he doesn't want to do. And then I have to let go, and he lets go sometimes, I let go. You can't win all the time. That's what it's like in a relationship. You have to, the other person has to go in the path that they want to go, and you have to support them fully. Ronnie loves his golf. Golf has been something he's done ever since I met him. And it's really something that's very important to him. I never say to him, you have to be home at a particular time. He knows it's going to be lunchtime. He doesn't take advantage, and he comes home when he's ready. And I love it because he's happy.
I've been very, very lucky in that aspect, because many women, many wives, don't give their husbands space. And as Susan's just said, she has, if I said to her I wanted to play golf, say this afternoon, and I'm going to play tomorrow morning, and even if I stretched it the next morning, Susan would never stand in my way. And I think that's quite brilliant, because you then feel a little bit guilty. You don't want to take advantage. But I've never been one to hang around a pub after golf and drink and come home at 8 o'clock at night. It's not my style. So I think it's worked 2 ways, but as I say, Susan didn't put me on a leash, as I never put her on a leash. And I think it's worked well for both of us in our particular interests. I mean, like if Susan wanted to go to an art gallery, I would go with her on the the important ones. Obviously, all the important ones I'd be with her. But I don't want to go to a small gallery to see a new artist that's being launched. It's not my interest.
To go, except when it's important.
But I would never stop Susan from going. So, you know, I suppose that's what marriage is. It's give and take.
And it's not easy. I think life is not easy. There's
Life's
many
become
things,
complicated
there's
these
many
days.
things that have happened. Excuse me. There are many things that have happened to Ronnie and I that have been devastating. There have been times when we've nearly lost our house. There have been times when his parents passed away very young, and he had the most wonderful parents. To this day, I think about his mom and dad, and I say thank you for bringing up Ronnie so beautifully, because they taught him respect for women also, and particularly for women. And that respect that he has for me and the way he treats other people has been really a wonderful thing. In their business, for example, him and his brother employ mostly women. Why? Because they think women are amazing and they know that they're going to do the work that they need to do. They just enjoy being with intelligent women, and that's what you've done. I mean, with the business.
I think you're talking about a different subject now. I think you're talking about abuse.
Well,
can I go on to?
Sure.
You know, you've got these 16 days of activism and the way men treat women, and why do men do such despicable acts? And I've always had very fixed ideas about this. Firstly, I believe it's the way you're brought up and the way you see your parents behave towards each other. And if your father acts with respect and love towards your mother and never hits her or shouts or screams at her and undermines her,
vice versa,
and vice versa, of course, then you'll go into life with the same attitude. But if you see your father being abusive to your mother and nothing happens, then you think it's a right, that's the way life is, and that's the way marriage works. I also think that schools, teachers, can do a hell of a lot more of taking kids into homes where women have been abused and are kept there for safekeeping. And it's just like drug addicts. If you don't want your kids to be drug addicts, take them to a drug rehabilitation center if it's a serious situation, and show them what happens by taking too many drugs. But everything is by example, and it's not a matter of what you say, what I say you must do. It's a matter of leading by example. And whether that's in marriage or in the workplace, if you're a boss, I mean, we always, in our business, always try to lead by example. There was no task that was something that I wouldn't do. I would have done it already, and then delegate and know what the outcome should be or how to do it. And not scream at a staff member because they got it wrong, but rather to build them up to try and get it right for the next time. So everything in life is by example, and if you've got a great mentor in whatever aspect, whether it's relationships, whether it's business, whether it's sport, then if that mentor is putting you on the right path, then you would act accordingly. But if you've got the wrong mentor, then that's where you'll take your lead.
I mean, Ronnie and I realized that we both came from nice families, from families where the couples were, the parents were happy. But we had a completely different upbringings. You know, I was much more strictly brought up than Ronnie in some ways, and him much more strictly brought up in some ways than me. So when it came to actually bringing up the kids and disciplining, we had completely different experiences and different views, and it wasn't always easy.
No, that was the biggest source of disagreement
Yes.
in our marriage. Was how to
We
bring up the
struggled
kids.
with that, but what
See,
we
you guys caused the problems.
But so what we did was our middle daughter Sarah, who you met, decided that we as parents were too strict. So she decided that we had to go to family life,
That was
which we agreed
group
to
of
do.
counsellors.
And I didn't disagree with that, because Ronnie's way of punishing the kids was if the kid said one thing naughty, then he'd say a week of punishment. Another thing, you don't say it again or you'll get another week. And of course the child would say something naughty again, and we'd land up with 3 weeks punishment. And he would go to work, and I'd have to continue this punishment on for 3 weeks to support him, which I always wanted to do. But I used to say to him, please, I believe in a punishment. They do something wrong, punish straight away, get it over with, the next morning you can live again.
In other words,
No.
discuss it first before implementing the
And
punishment.
that was what we learned. We went along to family life. We thought we were going to be told that we're the most wonderful parents and everything's fine. And the counsellor said
To me,
to
she
Ronnie,
pointed to me, she said, "You are wrong." I said, "Me?" She said, "You are wrong." So that, I think, with family relationships was one of the biggest wake-up calls I've ever had in my life.
and the two of
Because
us
here's
had
my
to
daughter
agree.
Sarah
Right.
going, "Oh yes, oh yes," and she went, "Yes, yes."
No, basically, the end
So-
of it was that we had to discuss everything first. Discuss if you're going to punish.
And she got more freedom.
She did get more freedom.
She did. She got so much freedom she didn't know what to do with it.
But nobody's expected to go through marriage agreeing all the time and not having difference of opinion. It's important.